please take over.
Okay.
Then maybe I'll sound gentle, like I know what my company is.
Right. Welcome to PDX Startups. This is a podcast about the Portland startup community, and I will be interviewing different startup founders. I was thinking about what the best way to do this podcast was, and I came up with, let me start drinking and get the founders to drink, and then we're just going to talk about their company. Today I'm here with the founders of Trestle, and we're drinking cognac? Is it cognac? Cognac. And I feel like, let me introduce them first. Here we go. So we have Jennifer Johnson and Carl Hickerson, and they are the founders of Trestle, and we are drinking cognac, and we're just going to talk about their company and just kind of get into whatever trouble cognac will get us into.
Oh, yeah.
So thank you.
So this is more an ad for cognac, really.
It is actually, yeah. I
So
feel like
this
is an ad for cognac. I should find out who makes this cognac and get them to be a sponsor of the podcast.
Absolutely.
So if you're out there listening, we need sponsors. But yeah, so give me like a quick pitch about Trestle.
Yeah, absolutely. So Trestle is a Portland-based company that is building technology systems and solutions for people who are frustrated with how hard it is to find and support companies who operate with the ethics that they themselves believe in. So we live in a world right now where we're starting to ask companies to do better than past expectations of business, but for a consumer, it's really challenging to figure out that information and splice through that. So we're making it very easy to connect with companies based on the things that you believe in.
Yeah, essentially what we're doing is we're able to analyze companies, aggregate their value claims, find the truth essentially of what they're doing, how they're operating. And then as a shopper or a person is wanting to shop, we're able to match them to the best company for their actual specific personal values. So if I want to find a sustainable company and I'm looking for a jacket, I will be pushed towards the companies who have been proven to be sustainable.
That's cool. And what do you feel is why now? Why now out of any time in history or in the future? Like, why do you need this now?
We're in a really unique point in time. So I kind of alluded to it in the answer to the first question, but for all of history to date, businesses' role in society was to earn profits for its shareholders and provide jobs for a growing economy. It's not until the last couple decades that we've even started to look at business as a potential tender, as someone to help address some of the social issues that have been traditionally reserved for governments and nonprofits. So the public is starting to really expect more of business. And the good news is business is rising up. There are not only well-established, long-standing businesses and corporations that are implementing incredible policies around fair labor, using sustainable practices, improving their structures to become more ethical, but there are new companies that are building entire identities around doing social impact kind of practices that build entire apparel lines around sustainable practices and zero waste. And in addition to the business side, that they're starting to do some really cool practices and changes, the consumers are just now starting to become more aware. So there was a Nielsen report that just came out, and we can link it to this podcast, if that's all right with you.
Yeah, that'd be great. I should probably be thinking about these things.
Talking about how the report was talking about how 2018 was the year of the conscious consumer. And it concluded that it's just the beginning. So for the next decade, conscious consumerism, by their standards, is going to increase significantly. So we're just at the beginning of the consumer awareness around their ability to impact the way businesses operate by how they choose to spend their dollars.
Well, and if I can actually expand on that too, it's like we're in an era where it's like we've dominated convenience. It is really easy nowadays. If you've got an itch to go buy something, you can just go buy it and it'll be delivered to you in 2 days. Right. So we've kind of lost our research ability to research and really explore for a product because it's so easy to just do the easiest.
We've gotten lazy.
We've gotten super lazy. Yeah. And what we're seeing is, people do care, people have values, and people really do want to stand behind something. But what we don't see is a really easy mechanism to make sure that we've gotten so dependent on the convenience that the actual values have gone to the wayside.
Right.
And we become, blissfully unaware of what we're actually supporting with our dollars. And there should be a better system. And so we're building the better system.
Cool. I know that you guys have had initial traction. You guys are right now in a phase, like kind of a beta phase, I guess is what you call it, or where you're testing out with kind of doing the things that don't scale, right?
Correct.
So how's the response been, and what type of values are you seeing that people care about?
I'm going to answer your second question first.
Okay. I like that.
The question about what kind of values are we seeing, and honestly, it crosses the gamut. There is such a wide range of values that humans hold personal to them, and they're everything from what we've mentioned: sustainable practices, fair labor practices, social impact, to cruelty-free, to supporting veteran-run and supporting veteran organizations, to supporting, ensuring religious organizations have their space too. So it really crosses the gamut. We're focusing right now on supporting 6 main values, 7 really. So sustainable practices, fair labor practices, social impact, supporting communities through providing dollars or resources or materials, cruelty-free practices, natural products, and transparency. We're also including some locally made. So that's where we're starting, but that's not to say that's the extent of what people care about.
Right.
So the traction that we've established so far is, let me give you a little bit of background of where we're currently at. One of the services we've developed is a conscious personal shopping assistance. So we are doing, like you said, the unscalable things of acting in a way that we believe our future technology will behave. And we're finding right now, we're bringing on clients, and then as they need something or they're looking for a product or a service, we're going and doing the research that they would have to do in order to make a value-based decision. So we're researching companies, we're reading CSRs, which is corporate sustainability reports. We're aggregating all the information and then providing a really succinct report to the client that says, if you're looking for product X, here are the top companies on the market that provide the product you're looking for or the service you're looking for. Here's the values they operate by. Here's the documents you can research if you want to go deeper. But really, this company right here represents your values the best. Now they can make a decision based on all the traditional things, including features of a product or service, the price, the convenience, but also now they can include a values-based decision within their choice.
Cool. I guess my next question, after listening to how thorough that was and everything that you've thought through, were you guys always nerds, or is this like a new thing? Because when I think about it, and I'd love to get into how did you guys even come up with this concept? Why did you think that you wanted to do this as a business? Are you just always thinking about I don't know, are you guys volunteering at night? Are you guys just the best people in the world? Because this is one of those things that I look at and I say, wow, this is great. I wish I was a good enough person to have thought of doing this.
What's funny is we consider ourselves to be the stereotypical consumer. So we're that person who actually, historically, I just shop on Amazon. Mm-hmm. I just shop with what's convenient, what's cheapest, and maybe it's living in Portland, maybe it's kind of being surrounded by these ideals, but I recognize that there's definitely a gap, and I think Jennifer is along the same boat with me, where we want to be better, but we didn't know how to do it. We didn't even know where to start, and how do you actually find a company? First question, what are my values? What do I actually care about when I want to shop? And so it's just really kind of digging into that and realizing it's just not easy, and I don't want to do the work. So I want to, build a system for that. So we are, somewhat nerdy, but also kind of jockey.
Right.
But yeah, we're just trying to build that system.
To answer the very first part of your question, are we just nerds? A little bit, actually. So I was quoted in my hometown growing up as saying, I quit cheerleading and joined robotics club. So yes, ever since I was younger, I've been a little bit on the nerdy side, and I'm proud of it.
All right, you should be. I feel
But a good image to conjure up is something that I wrote about in one of my first blogs that I wrote that describes why I'm doing this. I grew up in Indiana, which has a very different value set than the Pacific Northwest. So I grew up in a different value set. Once I moved to the Pacific Northwest and I was surrounded by a different value set, I did not know how myself to engage with it. Here's an example. I remember one time standing in, I think it was, what's the name? The salad restaurant in town, Garden Bar. I was standing in a Garden Bar, and I had a coffee cup, a to-go coffee cup from a previous meeting, and I walked up to 7 bins, and I had literally no idea where to put this coffee cup, this to-go coffee cup.
Right.
And I knew that everyone around me was waiting for me to make the wrong call and immediately jump in and grab that coffee cup, put it in the right one, and save the earth from my mistake.
Right.
So that's kind of an image of how it feels to try to make values a part of anything that I do that is within our consumer space.
Right.
Using a, Midwest to Pacific Northwest comparison.
Right.
Well, I think that gives us a little bit of advantage too, because we still get to act and think through what does the actual common consumer want, and we're able to make a system that is actually going to help the masses and not just the few people who are already doing all the research. And so it kind of puts us into a category of making something that is probably a little bit more scalable.
Right.
Is my thought.
Just making it easier for people to make better choices that align with what they care about.
Right.
Right. That's awesome. Well, let's switch gears here a little bit and just talk about how you founded your company. I know that you guys are obviously partners in the company, but you're also partners in a romantic capacity as well. Can you tell me a little bit about that and just maybe some of the challenges that come from that? Because traditionally, I think most people would pause before starting a company with someone that they're either dating or married to or engaged to. So just tell me a little bit about that.
Man, I get the pause, but I would urge otherwise. For me, it's a really incredible experience to, and I'll speak to my personal experience and then I'll speak to why it's good for the company. It's a wonderful experience to get to wake up and be passionate about something with the person that I love most in this world, and to see that he's as passionate about it with me. And the good thing is we have different talents and skill sets, and we get to not only pull on those in our business, but in our personal relationships with people around us, in our relationship with each other, and the way that we go about living life. And so we get to see each other in a way that is completely different than what another couple might see each other in. And it's a perspective that's I'm so honored to be a part of and participate in. It's good for the business because of the things I just said. We are partners that are learning each other intentionally in ways that it's not just for the business. I care about who this person is, what his needs are, and how he gets to engage in the business. And so because of that, because I'm not just so business focused, it allows us to bring a more, what I believe, and I haven't co-founded with somebody else, so I can't necessarily speak in comparison, but my experience is that we get to bring a greatness and a uniqueness to the way that we engage the other person in building the business. So in response to somebody having pause, I think that's a common response, and I think that's fair. You could please ask the questions to try to understand why this is a good working relationship, why it's good for the business. But to date, it's been exceptional. It's been a great experience.
When I think where the risk can come in and where people tend to have the pause is that, with any, let me actually go back a little bit. I've always been told that with a business partner is essentially a marriage in itself.
Right.
Make sure that you're going to work with somebody who you can be with for the rest of your life and trust with all your money. And within that framework, I'm like, it can also be a romantic partner, but I think the risk comes into play when where's that disconnect and where's that break, and that can cause a lot of conflict. And also, how do those individuals deal with conflict? And I think that, you know, at least in our situation, I think that we're pretty lucky that, you know, we have very good communication, that if we're not connected, if we're not, you know, really seeing eye to eye on the business side, we're able to stop and be like, okay, we're not, you know, vibing right now. Let's go out for a walk and actually talk about this, and let's actually get together and be real within the situation. So in that sense, it's really strengthened us.
Well, that doesn't sound like that you're lucky. That it sounds like you actually are intentional in the work that you're putting into
Sure.
it. So I mean, one of the things that I hear from investors a lot when they see companies founded by couples, or that have they're worried, like, well, what happens when they break up? And what's interesting is that one of the reasons why businesses fail is because the founders have falling out, and most of those founders are not romantically linked together. They are just business partners, and there's a failure to communicate or a failure to understand when someone has a different position. So what you just said was actually like, and I think, Jennifer, you said it first, is like, you guys are being intentional about the way that you're approaching this, and maybe that's an advantage of being having a romantic partner that is also your business partner, because you have the possibility of saying the wrong thing twice, you know, instead of it just being like, I'm going to grandstand in a meeting. It's like, well, now we have to go home and there's the couch, right? Who's going to sleep on it? But jokes aside, I think that, like, what you're saying, you can't chalk that up to luck. That's usually, I think businesses sometimes never get there. Founders never get there, and for couples, like, I think it's hard too. So I see that almost as a competitive advantage in that respect.
We do too. An example of the intentionality is we went on we called it a founders retreat, where we really did get away and we went out into nature and camped for a couple days, and we spent time really trying to identify what this founder relationship's going to look like primarily, and we spent a significant amount of time discussing how we will embrace conflict and what that's going to look like. And we took notes, and we, you know, did some Snapchat videos around it, because we believe that that's the stuff that's really, really important, is being forward thinking in knowing that there will be problems, embrace the challenges that come with that, and figure out the tools that you each have in order to address to come to the table together. And so we've done some homework already that allows us to, when we have those moments that Carl mentioned where we're not quite seeing eye to eye, we have a set of tools that we've already established that we now bring out and we have conversation around. We essentially, like I said, embrace that conflict. But that's something that you wouldn't necessarily think to do unless you knew that there was stakes that were high.
Right.
And so I think because we have a founder relationship and a romantic relationship, the stakes are high. And so we're going to put extra work into making sure that it's a solid relationship on both ends.
Right.
Well, even to take it back even further than that retreat that we had, when we first decided to get into business together, well, number one, we hadn't been dating all that long, and so our relationship has been, you know, within the extent of the business, almost the entire business. But the moment that we decided to be business partners, we reached out to a counselor and had counseling sessions to be like, let's make sure that as we go into this, we're able to separate business and able to separate, you know, romantic, and actually have a conversation around both that can be, you know, both constructive. So yeah, I guess it has been, from the very first moment we started working together, very intentional with recognizing that this is a risk.
Right.
But also it can be stronger than ever.
Well, it's interesting too, because you said that you guys kind of started dating and then decided to launch a business. So I guess there's a term like there's love at first sight. I don't know what the whole term would be for founding a business at first sight, but that seems like it goes hand in hand.
Yeah.
But it's awesome that you guys reached out to a counselor, because I think that even in companies that don't have founders that are romantically linked, that's something that's in therapy. regardless, is seen as a taboo still, right? But it's one of the things that in my time working with startups that I often recommend that they see a therapist, because there's a lot of stress, there's a lot of things that are happening and that are just not average day type of things that you need someone to help guide you and talk it through that's, kind of outside of your normal sphere of influence. And it's just one of those things that I know that there's a lot of founder depression that occurs and it goes untreated, and that's something that our culture with startups is like it's supposed to be hard, and you're supposed to struggle, and you're supposed to just hustle and deal with that struggle. And I think that's very dangerous. So it's awesome that you immediately recognize that. I mean, of course you would, because you guys are nerds, apparently. And move forward with doing counseling, because that's smart. I mean, that's super smart. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely want to say, so your website is www.mytrestle.com, and Trestle
We
is
should probably
spelled
spell
out.
it.
Yeah.
Trestle.
Okay. And what does trestle mean?
It's a bridge. So
It's-
it's a
well,
style of bridge.
Yeah, it's an architectural structure which represents a 3. So it's either triangular in a bridge sense. It usually looks like a triangular shape. But you can also have a trestle stool, which is a 3-legged stool. So it represents a strong structure that is architecturally sound.
Okay.
And our concept behind it, we were on a bridge when we thought of the name and we're brainstorming on the way down. But we wanted to be the bridge from people to businesses through shared values. And so right now, there is a long journey that you have to take to find a business through values. And so we just want to bridge that gap and be that foundation and that structure that basically is creating a new system.
And a little further to elaborate, we see ourselves as technology that will be more infrastructure, that's a little behind the scenes. We're not going to ask a consumer to come to our brand new flashy marketplace or website. It will exist. Our technologies will exist, and they're already, to use the word again, existing platforms where they're already searching for their products and services that they need.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you for sitting down and drinking cognac and, is it cognac? Cognac with me. This is what happens when you drink cognac.
I hope we get a comment that says this is how you're supposed to say it correctly.
Right,
Then we'll know.
Then I'll know, yeah. Then I'll know I have
This
more
is-
than one listener.
just so we know, this is a Tradition Rare 2008 Maison Gautier.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it sounds fancy.
Sounds nice.
It's
It tastes very good.
yeah. And this was an engagement gift, you
Yeah.
said? All right. So
Yeah.
I somehow weaseled my way into drinking your engagement gift, which is awesome. I think that you have done your part for PDX startups. But thank you again for sitting down, and we'll have more information at in the description, I guess. I'm new to this, so if I'm doing all this wrong, someone who knows how to do podcasts, please reach out to me. All right, thanks. See you next time.